what actually is happening and who is involved in leveling such baseless allegations against honorable member of Pakistani community.
A big proportion of the crime being committed against the young, vulnerable people is actually by the indigenous white people.
Why this is happening, these sex crimes which are on the rise?
This sort of abuse is actually not new. Throughout the human society, irrespective of which background they are from and which part of the world they are from, this abuse has been happening. Already we've established that about 85% are being committed by the white indigenous people. Yeah.
Any strategy, any future roadmap has been chalked out that how community could be protected, how this propaganda could be countered?
Whenever unfairness is there, they should do what they can to protect the interests of Pakistan and the Pakistanis wherever they are. And so I'm pleased that they did that.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Hello and welcome to Program Insight in V News English. Dear viewers, there is another very, very important issue concerning Pakistani who are living in United Kingdom. There is a very huge Pakistani community which lives in United Kingdom. Although they are British citizens, but they are always known as British citizens of Pakistani origin. Currently, it's damaging, alarming, and extremely regretful campaign against Pakistani community. From different quarters, they are being charged and they're being accused of the part of the sex grooming gangs in United Kingdom. And this is happening over last many years. But in last few days, these accusations have gone high. So prompting Pakistani community to clarify their position, Pakistani professionals, doctors, engineers, teachers, Pakistani origin politicians, business persons, almost people from all across different walks of life, they are making it very clear that they have no concern and no involvement in such things. In the backdrop of this, the National Police Chief Consul's one of the director, he has made a press briefing in which he disclosed that 85% of the offenders of the sex crimes are white. And there is no particular issue of any particular ethnic community. More regrettably, United States-based tech billionaire Elon Musk used to also accuse British government, British Prime Minister of complicit in such crimes. To discuss this all and all related issues, we are fortunate to have with us one of the British Member Parliament, Mr. Afzal Khan, who is also of Pakistani origin. He has spared his time despite his busy schedule and he's available with us. Very warm welcome, Mr. Afzal Khan, to Program Insight in V News English. So as I've already presented some of the facts, please share your perspective, what actually is happening and who is involved in leveling such baseless allegations against honorable member of Pakistani community.
I think for your viewers to fully appreciate and understand, then probably we have to take a step back a little bit and then look at the whole thing. And I think what is happening is that there is an ideological struggle taking place, and that is usually the far right and the liberals and the socialists on the other side. And it's this point scoring that is taking place, and it's also through this that they are weaponizing some of these different aspects where basically they can wild up the general population and cause difficulties for the government. And we experienced this immediately after the election when Labour won an historical victory. It was a landslide and the worst defeat for the Conservative Party in their entire history. Conservative Party is one of the oldest in Europe as a political party, but the defeat they had was the worst. So you have this far-right elements who are then exploiting this, and then you get this billionaire individuals who also, like Elon Musk, who has access to the social media platform of X, which is a global communication tool, which he is using I think, to destabilize. And the first thing after this we saw when, like I said, the victory of the Labour government, there was the killing of two innocent young children. And then this individual wasn't even a Muslim, and yet they gave this idea that it was a Muslim, and then that led to riots. And you can see this. And then I think now you touched on the grooming issue. Again, this is nothing new, actually. This issue has been around for a number of decades. And there are layers in this argument, but the key broader point is that even if we look at these incidents, the first point is, as a Muslim or the Pakistani community, we have never supported anything of the sort. We condemn it. And our position has been, irrespective of the individual's background, nationality, culture, religion, criminal is a criminal, and as a society, we should deal with them, and they should get punished. So I think in this case, what they're doing is they're magnifying a small issue, which happens to be of the Pakistani origin, and then portraying it as though there is some sort of cover-up by the government. So this is where the issue is, that they think the government or various institutions have failed to take action because they happen to be of outside of the white race. And this, I think, is the problem. The truth is, this is not the case whatsoever, because if you dissect the problem, then you realize that actually, is there any disproportionate number of this crime amongst the Pakistani community here? And the answer is no. Actually, the fact remains that this is a small amount of a crime being committed by some of those individuals who have a Pakistani heritage. But the big proportion of the crime being committed against the young, vulnerable people is actually by the indigenous white people. And the second layer into this argument is by allowing this narrative to dominate, then what you're doing is you are doing a disservice to the victims, because by focusing on a small percentage, you are then ignoring the huge, big amount, which is also relevant. And we as a society have to ensure all victims are protected. So this is, I think, is the second layer of this whole argument. And that the third argument, which is relevant for your views, is that they're demanding that there should be an inquiry. Now, current position is the government has accepted that in number of areas, they will look into this. But again, my position is the bigger issue is for so long, no action is being taken. Or people feel that action has been taken. The factor also is that many people have been found guilty and been sentenced, which is the right thing to do. And there will be more coming due the process who will be charged and then taken on a trial, and then if I found guilty, will be punished. But I think their argument, that there needs to be inquiry, the problem we then have is that there's been a number of inquiries in the past. Number of them have been local, but there also has been a national inquiry which has taken about 7-8 years. And this inquiry gave a report which was 2 years ago under the previous government, who failed to take any steps with the recommendation which that report gave. And for your viewers, there were 20 recommendations given in that report. So is it that we spend more time looking into this problem, or is it better for the victims that we implement those recommendations which are already available? And I think myself personally, my view is well, actually the victims want to see action. And the action means implementing those 20 recommendations, not to spend more time finding out what happened. So it's not the words, it should be the actions that we should be going after.
Mr. Afzal Khan, you have rightly pointed out that both pictures from the both sides, that there have been actions and there have been very slow action as well. So Britain is known as a country where rule of law is strictly followed and where justice is delivered within no time. So why it is so that despite there have been, and you also mentioned that despite these recommendations, some of the recommendations were not implemented. But our concern and question is exactly on the persecution side, on the legal side, why the system did not punish the offenders, whosoever they have been.
I think, like I said, it's not that they haven't. The fact remains some of the best actions taken against the defendant actually was the prosecution person by the name of Nazir Afzal. He was the head of CPS, the Crown Prosecution Service, who actually executed these charges in the courts in the Northwest. He is recognized by many people to be an expert in this area and who took initiatives to bring about new guidelines, even for the prosecution and the police, etc., to improve on these things. So I think it's not that it's not happened. I think it's just a deliberate attempt to muddy the water, to basically cause difficulties, because they also accuse Keir Starmer, who was also the head of the Crown Prosecution Service in the UK, and that he failed to take action. And when you examine it, the facts remain that actually he did, and he introduced a number of guidelines to help to improve this. So it's a deliberate misinformation being fed to give the wrong impression.
So coming to another issue, as I've mentioned earlier, what prompted Elon Musk to jump into this issue within the United Kingdom? And he has been accusing Pakistani community, and he has been accusing, as I said, the British Prime Minister. So what interest Mr. Elon Musk has in this particular issue in the United Kingdom? He's based in the United States, reposting, commenting, and his all posts have been very, very provocative against Pakistani community.
Yes. So my understanding is I don't think his target is Pakistani community. I think his target is Labour government. But they use Pakistani community as a pawn, and this old issue which has been around, and he is using it with misinformation and then putting it in the fact that he is a billionaire, the fact that he has one of the largest sort of platform of communication, then he's getting away with it. And I think to me, it also shows two things. One, the weakness in the current platforms that we have, how they are failing to protect the wider interest of the society. So therefore, we globally need to now look at some of these platforms and see how we can put checks and balances to make sure that misinformation cannot be pushed through into the wider society. And there has to be some correct mechanism. And especially these platforms, I think actions needs to be taken to make sure that they are held to be accountable for what happens through their platform. So I think that is a struggle which is there. And the second side of the argument is, as someone of his background, one who has such a huge economic muscle, and someone who today will be having a senior role in the US government, he too has to be responsible for what he says. And I think it's this where he's lacking there as well. And I think anyone who has any senior position in any government should understand how the relationship between governments operate. And you do not attack like this through misinformation. That in any civilized context is not acceptable.
Concept, you rightly talked about misinformation. which is spreading very fastly everywhere in the world. Countries, governments are tackling with the fake news. And last year we have seen worst violence in United Kingdom. And finally, when it was proved, when it was investigated, it was also fake content, videos, and pictures on different websites that prompted violence within the United Kingdom. So, what British government or what the British society is doing is the British society has already said that they are highly educated, well aware, but despite that, people do fall to the information which is fake, which is unauthentic, which is misinformation. Mr. Khan.
Yes, I think, again, first of all, I would say to you is it's just not Britain. Actually, this is happening everywhere.
Everywhere, in every
It's
country.
happening in Pakistan, it's happening in America, it's
India,
happening in
it
other
is in
European
Europe.
countries. Yeah, you can name it. And some of these countries are actually culprit from where a lot of misinformation actually is peddled through globally. So again, we need to look at that. I think add to this mix is this AI coming in now. This
Very, very
artificial
dangerous.
intelligence is bringing about a new sort of opportunities through where you can bring about some of the contents, which is almost impossible for an ordinary person to separate that this is fake or real.
The real.
And
It's the
this
biggest
adds to
challenge.
this dimension. And I think in Britain, they clearly are looking at this. They're looking at this online areas, how this online, has increased, and how we see the weak areas within this. And as a society, what are those steps that needs to be taken where you can ensure to protect the innocent individuals. And in this, I think it will take some time, but I'm sure we will get there. And ultimately, the responsibility, the tools which are already available to these companies, what they are doing is not using them. They're allowing this sensationalization of the news, the negativity of the news to spread. And these algorithms that they use, again, is to promote this type of things. And I think if we put the responsibility on these companies and bring with it the penalty aspect, and I think then the companies would be forced to act.
Mr. Afzal Khan, since you're a member of the parliament and your constituency, most of the voters would be definitely of Pakistani origin, of Kashmiri origin, of different ethnicities. So, what role a member of the parliament in one of the most effective constituencies, what role these members of the parliament are playing to diffuse situation, to clarify, and whatever is the misperception, to remove misperception amongst the members of the society that this is not the real picture.
Yes.
So,
I think what you will see is, I'll leave the individual on one side and I'll come back to that. But broadly speaking, we've seen the government acting on it. We've seen people in authority coming and giving the facts that, look, this is not the case. So, for example, the Pakistani community, the people who are engaged with are only a small percentage. They've said this. And they've said, actually, where are the large number of people coming from? So I think that clarification is being provided. But I think then it brings back to this individual like myself, who's a member of parliament, who do have avenues through which they can express. Then, of course, we are also using those to challenge that this is not right, whether it's the social media, whether it's the parliament, or whether it's the public other platforms. Even this weekend in Manchester, where my constituency, we were honored to have the High Commissioner of Pakistan. And there, the key constituency of the Pakistani community were gathered there. And we were able to see the incredible contribution the Pakistani community are making to a British society. Almost every aspect of the life in Britain is being shaped by the Pakistanis. And if you take myself, I am a member of parliament. I represent this whole area in Manchester of Resham, which has 6 different districts which elect me. Now, majority of them actually not Pakistani. There's only about 13% of my constituency are Pakistani, 1-3. but we work
Well, great.
together. We have a very rich, diverse communities. But I know from this meeting alone how in schools, how in universities, how in hospitals, how in professional lives, how in business, the Pakistani community are excelling and are contributing. And that was displayed in that meeting yesterday. So I think it's there. And then on a personal level, like I said, I've also did an article which actually pulled together the contribution of the Muslim communities to the British society. There's a long relationship between Britain and the many various Muslim countries, and particularly Pakistan goes back to 1890 something, when it started. And yes, in the 60s, large number of them came from Pakistan. They are now third, fourth generation. They are British. As much as anyone else. But yes, they have a rich history and diversity, which they bring the culture of Pakistan together as well. But that has shaped Britain. Number one food is tikka masala.
Exactly.
So this shows you the contribution. Our jewel in the crown of our public services is the NHS, the health service. It's recognized globally. And guess what? It could not operate without Pakistani doctors and nurses. There are so many of them actually contributing. So I think there's no ifs and buts. The Pakistani community are, like many other communities, playing an excellent part and a positive part to enriching the British society and the British culture.
As a politician and as a senior political analyst, what do you think? Why this is happening? These sex crimes which are on the rise, regardless whosoever is involved. And earlier, as we have discussed, and you also confirmed this, that punishments are being awarded to the offenders, cases are being filed before the court of law. But despite this, where is the gray area that these elements, these nefarious elements, are exploiting those gray areas and making such offenses and part of these sex grooming gangs?
Yeah, I think the truth, your viewers will understand that this sort of abuse is actually not new. Throughout the human society, irrespective of which background they are from and which part of the world they are from, this abuse has been happening. Even if we look at here in Britain, already we've established that about 85% are being committed by the white indigenous people, yeah. But we also know there are institutions, we've seen that the Catholic Church, for example, has had a problem with this area. We've seen the Church of England having a problem with this. We've seen other institutions like this where there's been an issue of sexual harassment taking place. So as a society, the problem has been there. And what is happening is that with these new tools that we have through communication, the tools of internet, the tools of social media, these are also another tools through which people connect people, and then the abuse happens. So this grooming actually also happens on the internet. And so this is
social
there.
media, internet, websites.
Absolutely. So I don't think it's something new which is happening. It's been happening all along, but some of the methods are sort of new, the means that we have through which to exercise this. So as humans, we know there are elements always in the society who are actually not good. But the good point is always from any group of the people, from any part of the culture, any corner of the world, majority of the people have always been good people. And that is exactly what the case is even today. The majority always lies on the side of the good. What we need to make sure is that we reduce the space for those who abuse the system and make sure there is a proper accountability and proper deterrence against those individuals.
You rightly said that on the weekend, Pakistani High Commissioner was in Manchester. We also have seen reports that he met Pakistani community. Finally, we are closing to the program. There is any strategy that has been chalked out while interacting with Pakistani High Commissioner, because Pakistani High Commission is also supposed to protect its diaspora in any such difficult time. So any strategy, any future roadmap has been chalked out that how community could be protected, how this propaganda could be countered? Mr. Khan.
Yes. So the first thing I would say is, I want to acknowledge the Consul General of Pakistan in Manchester, who's done an amazing work actually as his role. And then similarly, the High Commissioner, who is now moving around in different parts of the country to basically pull the people together, give whatever advice he can, and to listen and learn and see what role he can play. And I must also acknowledge the Foreign Office of Pakistan also issued a statement on this matter.
Exactly, strong worded statement.
That's
Exactly.
right, which is, I think, is fair. Whenever unfairness is there, they should do what they can to protect the interests of Pakistan and the Pakistanis wherever they are. And so I'm pleased that they did that. But I wanted to show your viewers that actually the government of Britain itself is doing whatever they need to do to make sure, on the one hand, actions are taken against those who are the defendants to protect the victims, and similarly to make sure no community is wrongly attacked for the crime of a small number of those elements, which I think we saw that in the riots, and again, how firmly the government dealt with it, and we can see it even now, the action being taken. On as a wider issue on the Pakistani community, my line has always been straightforward, and the first point is that as a Pakistani community, as a Muslim, we condemn any individual, irrespective of their background, of such acts. And we support firm action being taken against individuals who are the defendants, who are carrying out these crimes. The third point we want to say is what we need to do is protect the victims. Again, irrespective of the background the victim comes from, we should be siding with the victims. And whatever action we take, the victim must be at the center of it. And the third point for us as the Pakistanis is to be active, actually, to be engaged. We should not be defensive. We should play on the front foot and be proud of who we are, and for the positive contribution that we do make to the society. So that is a role we have to play here. And then finally, of course, we have a duty we are about 2 million Pakistanis. We are an incredible strong bridge for a relationship between Pakistan and Britain. And that we should play our part for the benefit of both countries to make sure that links that we have, whether it's a cultural, whether it's educational, or whether it's economic, all of those are utilized for the benefit of both societies.
Last, quickly, that British Parliament House of Commons is known as one of the strong parliament in the world, and the British government is answerable to House of Commons. So, since this is issue within the society, that issue has been raised in House of Commons. If so, then what was the response by the government?
A number of actually statements were issued in the government. I mean, look, it's a mother of parliament. They have well-oiled systems here through which you can bring about the relevant burning issues that are taking place, whether it's global or whether it's in the UK. And this issue's had a fair share of its time. I think in the last week alone, twice this was discussed. And the Home Secretary has issued a number of steps through which to move forward.
Thank you so much indeed, Mr. Afzal Khan, Member British Parliament, who spoke on this particular issue, that sex grooming gangs in United Kingdom and particular ethnic communities are being accused. What was the role of Elon Musk, whether his target was British government or any particular community, and then the role of the members of the British Parliament, and how the British Parliament is playing its role on this particular issue and all related issues. Thank you so much for speaking comprehensively to Program Insight in V News English. And dear viewers, till our next program, goodbye from the studios.
Thank you.